Hello. Good afternoon. Michael Wynn, Chief Digital Officer of Digital Ops, a division of RB Oppenheim Associates. Thanks for joining in today on the Digital Marketing Podcast and video series where we talk about digital marketing strategies and tactics to help grow your business. Today we're going to talk about the business growth amplifier effect and how to avoid the too big, too fast trap. I think that's one thing that we have definitely seen over the last 12 months of all of the episodes in looking at over nearly 7,000 downloads of this podcast and video series. Businesses are beginning to see real growth in their business. And maybe you, listening for the first time, have found this on Spotify or iTunes or YouTube. And you're going through a business growth spurt and you're trying to avoid the too big, too fast trap. Well, what is the too big, too fast trap anyway? Well, I think it really begins with, organizations and businesses who are enamored by, growing very quickly, seeing a huge influx in orders or opportunity, and then they go out and, buy a bigger building or buy a fleet of vehicles and literally go in debt in purchasing things and brick and mortar items that really begin to anchor and pull down your profitability, as well as add huge overhead and then stress to your business when you're in the middle of a growth spurt. So while the temptation is to buy big and scale, this episode is designed to maybe you think in a contrarian way about business growth. So let's jump into these 5 things to think about as you're going through the business growth amplifier effect and how to avoid the too big, too fast trap. So number one, I think, this was definitely something that, we learned and many businesses have learned as we went through this past year, reading the Traction book by Gino Wickman and talking about your process, mapping your process, making sure that your service or your products, that you've got a mapped process for everything you do so that everyone that's in your organization is in sync and is like a well-tuned machine, that everyone is rowing in the same direction. And that really helps to create a strong foundation when you're going through a growth spurt that, as you bring on new people or try to add, capacity, that things don't get off the tracks. When you've got that process in place, that really helps establish, bringing people in to a system of doing things, you can ensure that the new people, the new businesses that come on board with you, who are buying your services or products, experience the same experience as those who have been with you for 5 years, 10 years, 2 decades. So just remember that when you cut corners or when you take shortcuts, that is the quickest way to kill the great upward growth that your business is going through. Shortcutting and cutting corners is absolutely the thing that will derail and really work against the momentum that you've worked so hard to gain during this time. So again, ensure that your processes are mapped and just tight, a well-oiled machine. Number 2, okay, it's time to expand your team. There's no doubt that in any situation in a growth business, part of the equation is going to be human capital. And so when you get to that point, I think that what you're going to find is if you hire based on skills only and you bring that person in, you have a much greater likelihood that you could cause a disruption in the chemistry of the team than if you hire the new person based on core values. Again, it goes back to if your processes are tight and right, then you know that if you hire based on core values, it's pretty easy to teach someone a systematic way of doing things. I mean, obviously they have to have a basic core competency. We're not talking about, bringing the happy, smiley person that has no skills whatsoever. But when you're looking at that resume and you're face to face with that person, in the interview, when you know that the core values, that the characteristics of that person match your team, go with that first. Don't hire. And it's so hard because, so many times businesses who go through growth spurts, they hire to get warm bodies in the building to handle the processing of the orders. And ultimately that ends in a disruption of being able to get things done, or when things really start to heat up, the team crumbles because the chemistry is gone or, has been weakened because that new person that you brought in, their core competency, their core, characteristics aren't the same as the team that got you to the growth point. So making sure that when you expand your team, you focus on core values and team chemistry and put a high priority on that. Number 3, a change in marketing. Okay, this is probably the biggest one that I think a lot of businesses struggle with is, they are so excited that, what they've been doing that's brought them to the success that they've had so far, that they're just going to repeat that pattern over and over. Well, that's not going to work. You can't sustain that same growth pattern, consistently over the long haul if you're trying to execute and leverage the same old status quo marketing. So here's a couple of things that you need to think about that you may or may not have done to get your business in this sort of growth upswing. And here are really 3 sort of points. And it really boils down to these marketing tactics are they're more of a long-term play. And I think it's important that when you're going through that sustainable upswing, it's really important because now you're taking on a much larger market share than what you had to begin with, right? I mean, that's what you've got, more clients, you've got more orders, so people are finding out about you. So you've got to have a much wider view and a much a greater reach and longer term play. And so here are the 3 things that you should focus on. Number 1, the search engine optimization. Number 2 would be having a podcast, and number 3, posting long form written content on LinkedIn. Those 3 things are really about a marketing plan that does 2 things. Number 1, the Internet of Things and the ripple effect of those 3 platforms kind of pooled together on top of what you're already doing in some of the stuff that has worked. Adding these 3 layers onto that will allow you the long-term play, because once it's produced and on the internet, it's there forever, right? We talked about this before in a previous episode that, yeah, maybe you had Facebook ads and Instagram ads, which, got you some instant kind of growth or, an injection of quick orders. But the long-term play is you're going to need search engine optimization, a podcast, and a blog to really have that long-term play. And what's really great about those 3 things working together is the search engine optimization. If you take your podcast and have it transcribed into written form and then edit it in a really easy to read, not the way it was, verbally recorded when you did the episode, you can actually submit that on LinkedIn as organic long form written content on LinkedIn, which what that does is not only does it attract potential, whether it's B2B or B2C, clients that might be interested in what new things you're doing and how you're keeping on track with trends in the marketplace. But not only does that attract new business opportunities, but it could also attract, and very likely will attract, new staff and new team members, because here you are, pumping up the volume and original content on a platform where people are thinking about career advancement opportunities. You've now got an opportunity to, again, have a greater market presence, a greater market awareness in your particular segment. And then you take that same long form that you posted, and again, we're talking about 1,500, 1,800 words. If you have a podcast that's about 20 minutes long, it's going to transcribe out to that length, which is perfect. You post that on your website in a blog, and then you hyperlink the keywords, like today's episode where I talk about marketing would link back to our core marketing page on our website. And that inbound linking and that frequency of that long form blog content on your website, that is an excellent way to ensure that your local SEO reach will continue to rise, but as well as global as well. Maybe your business is a regional or national or global business. You're going to need a frequency of long form written content that anchors back to, links back to core cornerstone pages of your website, so that not only do humans know your business is expanding, but the search engines know that your business is an authority and an expert on this particular subject matter that you are wanting to gain greater market share in. So again, we've talked about ensuring your processes are tight. Make sure that when you expand your team, that you focus on core values and team chemistry. Number 3, it's time to change your marketing or add on to or enhance your marketing efforts. And number 4 is finances and facility. Don't be confused or tricked into the shiny new thing of, man, we need a bigger building, we need more cars. Think about this, guys. The gig economy, we've talked about this on a previous episode. If you're not familiar with the term gig economy, it's really about individuals powering their own ability to be wage earners, or whether it's Lyft or Uber or Airbnb, like all the different things where individuals are leveraging their assets to bring on additional revenue opportunities. And so here's a statistic, if you are not familiar with. It is estimated that by 2020, which is right around the corner, 46% of the labor force in the United States will be powered by the gig economy, which means 4 out of 10 of the employees in an organization may work remotely or out of their own home or vehicle. And so that trend, it was 37% as recorded in 2018. So we've seen a nearly 30%, 20 whatever percent increase in gig economy powering the workforce. That's going to continue to happen. So businesses who are smart, who let go of control and say, okay, just because I can't see you working in your desk doing your job, if I have my processes in place and the right people on the team, I know that things are going to get done, and you don't have to have this fear of are they just sitting around watching Netflix and I'm paying them to do their job, right? I know that seems really old school, but I can't tell you how the traditional industrial model of cubicle world has really stopped many businesses from growing. And also by buying a bigger building, you're taking on additional debt, and maybe getting rid of debt is how you actually got to the growth upswing and momentum that you're in right now. So I think that's really important. And then number 5, this is really important as well, and that is looking at your hardware, software, infrastructure. So when you're looking at, okay, number one, we need to make sure that all of our, processes are documented. When you're looking at a SaaS product, or software as a service, think about this. Maybe you had a virtual private network that was a hardware space that you were buying from, or paying a vendor. You might decide, hey, guess what? To lower our overhead costs, we're going to go to Google and go with their G Suite product, which is going to have unlimited storage capacity. You can pay $12 a month or $7 a month for email accounts for each of your staff members, which is probably, an eighth of what you're paying or a third of what you're paying, whatever the number is. I guarantee you it's cheaper than probably what you're paying, for that service. But in addition to that, instead of having to pay for all the licenses of all the Microsoft Office products, you're going to have Google's suite of tools that are spreadsheets and Word docs and PowerPoint presentation, like all of that is integrated, and so you don't have any additional licenses to buy. So, and you've got unlimited storage capabilities for all of those documents as well, which you can then share with certain team members, or you could have certain folders that are shared with C-level suite staff. So all of these sort of metrics, or all of these infrastructure, web-based platforms allow you to scale the team without having to invest heavily in additional infrastructure and hardware costs. Now, I think the other thing that you want to think about as well is, do you have a project management tool, whether you're looking at Active Collab, or whether you're looking at, some of the other, project management tools like Slack, or, there's so many different ones out there that are great. Whichever one you choose, having a web-based tool that can allow your team to work independently, but then also give your supervisors or C-suite the ability to kind of understand where the project is without having to pick up the phone or holler down the hallway, hey, what's going on with the so-and-so project? Those types of infrastructure things can help, again, go through that upscale, go through that process of growth for your company. And I think lastly too, with regards to infrastructure software, would be a CRM tool. If your company has not looked at a customer relationship management tool to be able to really make sure that each customer or each constituent, however you look at the people that you do business with, who are the backbone of your growth spurt that you're going through, you need to make sure that they're in a process or a systematic touch point, whether it's, hey, every month we're going to reach out and say thank you, or talk about new services, or just provide added value content to educate you on how to get the most out of your relationship with our company, or how to get the best, or how to improve your life by different ways to use the product or service that they've got, that they've purchased from you. So again, that last point is looking at hardware, software, and infrastructure, thinking about tools and platforms, whether it's the G Suite or the Google Apps platform, or project management systems like Active Collab or Slack, or and then also considering your CRM product, again, whether it's Civi CRM or Salesforce, whatever your CRM platform of choice is that makes sense for your industry. If you don't have that, you're going to need that when you're in that, that growth amplifier effect is happening to your business. Again, so I hope you found this episode interesting and enlightening. I hope I gave you some valuable tips for your business. And a quick recap is, when you're going through the business amplifier effect and how to avoid the too big, too fast trap, there really are 5 things. And again, that recap is: number 1, ensure that your processes are tight. Number 2, when you're expanding your team, focus on core values and team chemistry. Number 3, you must look at your marketing efforts and think long-term: SEO, podcast, LinkedIn, long-form, organic written content. Number 4, when it comes to finances and facilities, don't get enamored with the big shiny new thing and go out and buy a big building and a new fleet of cars. Think strategically. How can you do more with less? And don't forget, the gig economy represents 46% of the workforce in 2020. And lastly, number 5, when it comes to hardware, software, and infrastructure, make sure that you have unlimited resource, web-based platforms for your team to share documents and communicate, whether that's through Slack, a CRM channel, or other project management tools. Guys, thanks so much. I hope you had a great week. My name is Michael Wynn. I'm the Chief Digital Officer of Digital Ops, a division of RB Oppenheim Associates. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you on Monday.